On June 9, 2026, Queen Camilla stood at the absolute peak of British royal power, commanding the salute of the nation's most elite soldiers. Yet, behind the pristine palace gates, a silent panic was unfolding. She had finally won the 50-year war for the crown, only to face a terrifying realization. The entire kingdom is watching her, but they are already preparing for her departure. The ultimate triumph has just become a gold-plated trap, and the clock is ticking down to zero. If you want to understand the high-stakes survival strategy playing out behind palace walls, hit that subscribe button and turn on notifications right now. In this video, we are uncovering the hidden constitutional leverage shifts, the unspoken panic regarding the House of Wales, and the rising family branch threatening to completely erase Camilla's hard-fought legacy. What does a woman fear when she has finally captured the fortress, only to realize the ground beneath her feet is actively shifting? Let's dive into the real reason this historic military parade unmasked a monarchy running out of time. Under the pristine early summer sky in the gardens of Buckingham Palace on the 9th of June 2026, a spectacle of absolute institutional power unfolded. King Charles III and Queen Camilla stood at the epicenter of British ceremonial majesty, presenting the sacred new colours to the 1st Battalion of the Grenadier Guards. For Queen Camilla, dressed in tailored regimental elegance and wearing the historic Grenadier Guards brooch that once belonged to Queen Elizabeth II, this moment was the ultimate zenith of a 50-year chess match. Watching the elite infantrymen bow their heads before the drum altar as the chaplain general consecrated the rich silk standards, Queen Camilla embodied a triumphant reality that once seemed entirely impossible. She was no longer the shadowy figure vilified by tabloid headlines or the uninvited outsider lurking in the periphery of the House of Windsor. She was now the colonel of the regiment, the most senior foot regiment of the household division, commanding the absolute, unyielding salute of Britain's finest soldiers. Yet beneath the immaculate armor of this state ritual, an unspoken, razor-sharp psychological tension permeated the air. For an astute observer of royal dynamics, this brilliant display did not just signal triumph, it unmasked a profound, multi-layered vulnerability. As the cameras flashed and the drums rolled, they captured a queen who is acutely aware that her current summit of institutional validation is built upon an incredibly fragile, time-sensitive foundation. The grandeur of the presentation serves as a magnificent but temporary shield against a terrifying reality. Queen Camilla is a queen ruling on borrowed time, operating within a transitional monarchy and facing a looming generational eclipse that she cannot stop. Reports suggest that the true intrigue for the global audience does not lie in the flawless execution of the parade, but rather in the deep existential dread that haunts Queen Camilla behind closed palace doors. What does a woman fear when she has finally achieved everything she was told she could never have, only to realize that the sands of time and the shifting tides of public devotion are actively conspiring to wash it all away? To understand the depth of her current anxiety, one must look through the dual lenses of her personal psychology and her institutional power. Under the personal lens, Queen Camilla's primary dread is the sheer unyielding brevity of her historical window. Having ascended the throne in her mid-70s alongside King Charles III, her tenure as Queen Consort was never destined to be an expansive, era-defining epoch like that of her predecessor. Instead, it is a race against longevity. Every major military presentation, every state banquet, and every Trooping the Colour is shadowed by the unspoken awareness that her husband's reign is fundamentally a bridge to the future. Insiders say this creates a distinct psychological state of hypervigilance. Queen Camilla operates not as a builder of a new legacy, but as a desperate defender of a temporary fortress. She knows that her position of supreme honor is tied entirely to the heartbeat of King Charles III. The moment that bond is severed, her institutional armor vanishes instantly, leaving her to face a royal court and a public that have tolerated her presence, but never truly woven her into the emotional fabric of the nation. This personal dread seamlessly bleeds into a much more calculated, pragmatic anxiety regarding her actual institutional leverage. Power within the British monarchy is entirely dependent on two fluid currencies: constitutional legitimacy and public adoration. While King Charles III has meticulously granted Queen Camilla the former, the latter remains frustratingly out of her grasp. The Grenadier Guards ceremony perfectly illustrated this dichotomy. Physically, Queen Camilla occupied the space of a monarchical titan, inheriting a military role stripped from the family tree by Queen Elizabeth II in 2022. Yet, constitutionally and socially, she faces a brutal reality. Rumors indicate that the public's acceptance of her remains cold, intellectual, and transactional, born out of respect for King Charles III rather than genuine affection for her. This lack of an emotional mandate means that Queen Camilla lacks any permanent political capital. She cannot afford a single misstep, a single public relations disaster, or a single moment of perceived weakness. Her power is a highly managed illusion, sustained by meticulous choreography and threatened by the inevitable rise of a younger, infinitely more charismatic generation. The absolute authority displayed on the palace lawns hides a brutal truth. Queen Camilla is operating on strictly borrowed time. The modern monarchy runs entirely on future planning, but the reign of King Charles III is recognized behind closed doors as a temporary bridge. Unlike the historic 7-decade era of Queen Elizabeth II, this current tenure was always destined to be a brief, transitional chapter. This biological reality introduces a profound sense of urgency to every single public appearance. Insiders say this creates a constant state of internal tension within the royal household. The immense institutional power Queen Camilla wields is completely derivative, sustained solely by her bond with the king. In the highly traditional world of the court, a consort's standing changes instantly the moment a transition occurs. Every visible sign of fatigue or minor health scare from King Charles III signals a potential and sudden end to her golden era. Reports suggest the impending shift will force a dramatic, irreversible downgrade in her daily operations. She would immediately step away from active constitutional roles and lose command over prestigious military attachments, like the Grenadier Guards. For someone who fought for decades to secure a place at the center of the world stage, the thought of being quietly relegated to the margins as a dowager queen is a heavy burden. But the strategic nightmare runs even deeper than personal displacement. Government officials and media executives are already looking past the current leadership, building their long-term strategies entirely around the next generation. Her voice in daily governance is facing an invisible, steady erosion that she cannot stop. To fight this, the palace has launched a series of quick, highly visible public displays to anchor her legacy into the fabric of the state before the clock runs out. Yet, this high-stakes strategy requires absolute perfection under a relentless global spotlight. The ultimate tragedy is that the harder she fights to solidify her present influence, the more it highlights the massive threat waiting just across the hallway. The most pressing threat to Queen Camilla's institutional leverage is the unstoppable rise of the House of Wales. The relationship between the Queen and the heirs apparent, Prince William and Princess Catherine, is not merely a family dynamic. Insiders say it is a complex, high-stakes competition for the ultimate currency of the modern monarchy: public devotion and media supremacy. As Queen Camilla stands at the pinnacle of formal power, representing ancient traditions, she faces a brutal and persistent reality. The future belongs entirely to Prince William and Princess Catherine, and the global public is vastly more invested in that future than in Queen Camilla's hard-won present. This generational divide creates an undercurrent of intense professional anxiety for the Queen, who must constantly navigate the reality that her grandest achievements can be instantly overshadowed by the effortless charisma of her stepchildren. The contrast between Queen Camilla and Princess Catherine is particularly sharp. Queen Camilla's journey to the throne was a grueling, defensive campaign that took decades of careful navigation just to achieve basic public tolerance. Princess Catherine, by contrast, cultivated an image of flawless modern perfection that commands global adoration. When Princess Catherine steps into the public eye, she does not require ancient military titles or elaborate state rituals to assert her legitimacy. Reports suggest her power is intrinsic, generated by an authentic emotional bond with the public. For Queen Camilla, this creates a profound fear of erasure. Rumors indicate she is acutely aware that the moment Princess Catherine is present, the international media narrative naturally gravitates toward the Princess of Wales, effectively relegating the Queen to a secondary position on her own stage. Furthermore, the rise of Prince William introduces a political dimension to Queen Camilla's fears. Prince William is not just an heir waiting in the wings, he is a forward-thinking prince with clear ideas about a modernized, streamlined monarchy. According to sources, Queen Camilla is hyper-aware that Prince William's vision for the future may not include a significant place for her or her extended family. The moment Prince William becomes king, the institutional protection she enjoys dissolves and the power dynamic shifts entirely. But as formidable as the House of Wales is, a quieter, unexpected threat is rising from an entirely different branch of the family tree. Behind palace walls, an entirely different threat is quietly maturing, and it carries a bloodline that Queen Camilla can never match. While global attention remains firmly fixed on the high-profile movements of Prince William and Princess Catherine, a silent generational shift is happening within the broader family tree. The prime example of this emerging challenge is James Alexander, the Earl of Wessex. As the youngest grandson of Queen Elizabeth II and the son of Prince Edward and Sophie, Duke and Duchess of Edinburgh, this young royal represents a pristine, untainted lineage. It is a heritage that stands in stark, uncomfortable contrast to the complicated, conflict-ridden history that Queen Camilla carries into every state event. Insiders say the public fascination with rising figures like James Alexander creates a distinct undercurrent of concern for the Queen regarding the long-term preservation of her own standing. James Alexander belongs to a generation that offers the House of Windsor a completely clean slate in the court of public opinion. Raised deliberately outside the toxic media spotlight by parents who prioritized a grounded upbringing, he enters the royal stage with an unblemished reputation. Reports suggest the contrast is impossible for the public to ignore. Queen Camilla is a queen whose power was achieved through decades of grueling strategic maneuvers and public hostility. James Alexander, by virtue of his birth and pristine modern image, commands a natural, effortless respect from a public hungry for fresh faces. Rumors indicate this dynamic introduces a subtle but powerful threat of emotional displacement for the Queen. During major ceremonial gatherings, when the cameras pan away from the reigning monarchs to focus on the youthful composure of James Alexander, it signals a quiet changing of the guard. Queen Camilla is hyper-aware that the public's affection for these younger, direct bloodline descendants is organic and rooted in hope for the future. Furthermore, this rising generation highlights the ultimate limitation of Queen Camilla's authority. The institutional power she displays, while magnificent, is ultimately a non-transferable asset. She can command state salutes today, but she cannot pass that authority nor any permanent royal standing to her own biological children from her past marriage. The future belonging to direct descendants means that the ultimate trajectory of the British monarchy will inevitably return to a traditional structure. And what happens next will determine whether her entire life's work is simply erased from the history books. The palace walls are harboring a devastating truth. The system Queen Camilla spent 50 years trying to conquer is already working behind her back to phase her out. The grand illusion of absolute control is dissolving in real time. While she stands tall in ceremonial robes, the administrative machinery of the crown has quietly shifted its gears toward the future. Insiders say that government officials, international diplomats, and media strategists are treating her current authority as a placeholder. Her directives are subtly minimized, bypassed by a system that refuses to invest long-term capital into a transitional reign. This administrative bypass has created a quiet, invisible battleground within the royal household. Queen Camilla is forced to fight daily just to ensure her voice remains relevant in the governance of the estate. Reports suggest this has turned her style of leadership into an exhausting, purely defensive campaign. She cannot afford to look forward to long-term projects. Instead, she is forced to focus entirely on securing instant, highly visible public relations victories to assert her present legitimacy. It is a grueling pace for a leader approaching her 80s, operating under a relentless global microscope that hunts for any sign of slowing down. Yet, the true strategic nightmare is that this rapid pursuit of visibility is actively backfiring. According to sources, every grand event designed to cement her status only serves as a stark reminder of its fleeting nature. The royal courtiers who bow to her today do so out of a legal obligation to King Charles III, not personal allegiance to her. Rumors indicate that private blueprints for the next reign are already finalized, meticulously detailing how her public presence will be dismantled the moment the crown passes. She is trapped on a beautiful, highly elevated pedestal, forced to watch her own architectural legacy crumble before she even steps off the stage. And the final shocking realization of this lifetime struggle is something she never saw coming. The grandest victory in modern royal history has officially transformed into the ultimate historical trap. Queen Camilla successfully navigated decades of intense public hostility, altered the course of the House of Windsor, and placed her hands on the ultimate prize. Yet, as the echo of the military drums fades across the palace lawns, she faces the coldest reality of all. The very system she spent a lifetime conquering was never designed to protect her legacy. It was built to survive her. Insiders say her entire hard-fought journey may ultimately be remembered as nothing more than a brief, transitional footnote between two iconic eras. The public remains intensely fascinated by this final chapter because it exposes the raw, fragile nature of absolute power. Behind the confident exterior and the historic jewels lies a continuous, quiet race against time that cannot be won. Her authority remains entirely anchored to the current reign, leaving her exposed to an impending generational shift that is moving closer by the day. Reports suggest that the blueprints for the future are already drawn, and they do not favor the past. The rising star power of the next generation is waiting to completely rewrite the narrative the moment the guard changes. This leaves a lingering, powerful question that will define the monarchy for years to come. What happens to a legacy built on survival when the world is entirely focused on a clean slate? Queen Camilla has scaled the highest peak and captured the fortress, but she stands at the summit completely alone, watching the tides of history prepare to wash her influence away. If you want to stay ahead of the next major shift behind palace doors and track how this high-stakes power struggle unfolds, make sure to watch the video on your screen right now. The real battle for the crown is only just beginning.